Hello.
Hey Carol, how are you?
Hi, very well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Glad it worked out. You're just on time.
Yes. Yes, thank you. Yeah,
All
soon to
right.
get home and hoping I'm not caught up in such bad traffic. Yeah, but I'm okay.
All right. Okay,
Yeah,
glad to have you here. Okay.
thank you.
So people are still actually joining on the stream.
Okay,
Yeah, so we'll give them about 5 minutes.
that's
So
fine.
yeah, if you need a glass of water, please
I'll be
grab
right.
one.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. Mhm. Thanks, Hiram, for confirming you can hear us. Thank you. All right. So how are things?
Busy, but you're good.
But
Yeah,
nothing's ever not busy at KEPSA. I feel like KEPSA is one of those places, there's always something.
yeah. We have 1,001 things going on, and then it's close to one end of the year, so it's even more crazy.
Oh, I hear
But
you.
just my camera, just to make sure that it's seated right. Don't know
Right.
why it has an angle. Or it's the, let's see. I think it's
Right.
done. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But we're good. Looking towards the end of the year, we take a break.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Holidays. Yeah, me too. Me
yeah,
too.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So glad
Everyone
to
is
be here.
busy.
Thank you, Timothy, for joining us, and Joseph. Yeah. Yes. So say hi on the comment section. We're about to start. I'm just giving people a few minutes to join, and then we'll get started. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, LinkedIn user live from Westlands. How do you do that? How did you change
I
your name?
know.
Yeah. All right. Thank you all. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for joining Mumbi. She says, I'm looking forward to hear from Carol how she managed to be on several boards, whether there's some specific actions she took. Very interesting. All right.
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you. Thank you. Guys, if you already have a question for Carol or a comment, I mean, go ahead and share. We'd love to hear. We'd love to hear what you have to say. I don't want anyone to feel left out. This is a very rare session. Carol is very busy. So today is your chance.
You guys don't keep me too long. I'm so exhausted. I started at 7:30. I haven't had a break.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's
We'll be conscious of that. We'll be conscious.
you be
Thank you,
conscious.
Simon. All right. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth. Yeah. Thank you, Joyce. Thank you so much. Thank you, Lillian. We're also looking forward to hearing about her experience. Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, so Hiram says, looking to hear Caroline's updates on sustainability and special economic zones in Kenya and how things are going. Had an opportunity. Oh, all right. Okay. Okay, so Hiram has got some very specific questions there.
Yeah.
Actually, why don't we talk about that as we wait for in the next 2 minutes to officially start? Yeah.
Officially start. Okay, so yeah, so in the economic zones, my term just ended about what a couple of weeks ago, but it's going well. I'm glad we're able to lay the foundation, get some of the zones to start being the government zones to really start moving because that's where they were stuck. the private sector ones, and especially like the one you're quoting in Osirian, I think that's going well, because private sector, I guess it's you don't have too many things holding you back and too many consultations, so that's going well. On sustainability, we're doing a lot. We're doing mostly around the circular economy, and that's what we hope even the special economic zones that are sustainable will do. And basically that everything that you use can be raw material for the next person, so you don't need to throw anything. So we're running some pilot projects. Even in the coast, we have two, one for the youth and one for women, doing a lot of recycling. And then also in some of the, and even in Nairobi, we are running the plastic pack, where we are working with some of the big companies and users of plastics like Coca-Cola and others in terms of recycling. And so I'm sure you've started seeing even some of the big hotels starting to use glass in terms of water and all that, reduce that. But also thinking of how do we do more in terms of recycling plastic. So we have a plastic pact program that we are working on that. And then of course the climate change on the sustainability and getting the private sector to be involved in that. Today we just signed a private sector accord as private sector in Kenya on how to be involved and to put resources to get involved in the sustainability, in the climate change, so that we don't get where the development countries are. So we are still at 0.0 something in terms of emission, but it's growing very fast as we are developing. So are we also affecting the climate in terms of emissions and all that? So yeah, so I can when we have time, I can take you through all the different programs, but that's a highlight of the work that's happening around the sustainability and all.
All right. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. I hope that answers your question here. But if it doesn't, we'll get to that. We'll get to how you can find out more about it at the very end. Okay. So Carole, we are good to go. Ready?
Yeah.
All right.
So you have to ask questions and I respond.
Yes. But first I have to introduce you. People have to know you.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Beryl, and I am the founder of Angle Not Limited and also the host of After Hours, which is the session that we are holding today. So I'm very happy to see everyone. Please say hi in the comments. We'd love to acknowledge your presence and hear your comments as well. If you have questions for Carole, please do share them. So the After Hours sessions are held live, and we interview Africa's leaders, and our intention is to inspire and to challenge and to motivate people to advance their careers. And just by learning through someone else's successes, it's always really, it's just really motivating. So at Angle Not, what we do is we connect the top 1% of the professionals in the country to opportunities they are really great fits for and really excited to go into. And unlike traditional recruiting, what we do is provide a great candidate match, because we focus on cultural fit and on values and that sort of thing. And so I don't want to go into too much detail for this session, but if you're interested, if you're in recruiting or talent management or a CEO looking to hire your next leader, please do get in touch with us. So today's guest is Carole Kariuki. She's the CEO of KEPSA. And KEPSA is the Kenya Private Sector Alliance. It's an apex body for private sector institutions in the country. As KEPSA CEO, Carole is credited with building the KEPSA brand nationally, regionally, and globally. And it has made incredible strides, which we'll hear about when we go through the talk. She has sat on many influential boards, and that includes East African Cables, Harvard University's Africa Advisory Board, Special Economic Zones Authority, NILAB, and USIU Africa Trustees. She's also worked briefly for Barclays Bank of Kenya, Nairobi Chapel, and Sagamo Institute for Public Policy Research, where she was a liaison between KEPSA and the institute before she officially joined KEPSA. And she worked at several years at KEPSA before becoming the CEO. Carole has received multiple awards, including the Moran of the Burning Spear, Heads of State Commendation by former President Honorable Mwai Kibaki. She's also been awarded the Global Female Leadership Impact Award, and she's been inducted into the Global Women Leaders Hall of Fame by the Center for Economic and Leadership Development, and has been recognized as one of the top 100 women CEOs in Africa. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Carole Kariuki. Well, Carole, welcome very, very, very much. Thank you for joining us. Yes. And I know you said you're quite tired and you've had a long day. So I'm not taking it for granted that you're here today at all. Yeah,
Thank
thank you so much. Yeah. So guys, I think the first thing we always want to know is what was your first job ever?
you.
Was it CEO? Maybe.
I wish. After school or when I was still in school or before work life? Which one do you want to know about?
Okay, let's even start before school.
So after high school, I actually worked for Rift Valley Machineries.
Yeah.
The machineries are selling companies. So I did sell caterpillars and all those tractors that you see around. So that was my first job before I went to college. And then I did that. I did that several times when I was on break from college. Then I worked. Then I think by the time I was in third year, my next job was in Barclays. We used to have those holiday jobs in Barclays, and so that was where I worked, and that led to me working for Barclays after I finished college, because somehow by God's grace, I developed good relationships with the managers. So they were like, "Oh, when are you done?" I was like, "I'll be done soon in like a year's time." And so, yeah, so they really, so when I finished, they asked me to go back. And I
Yeah.
did that for 7 months. And I was like, this is definitely not my calling. Yes, I know I did economics and
Yeah.
money and banking was one of the courses that I loved, but definitely it's not my calling. Yeah, and maybe it's a type of banking I did because I was in the which was the checks department. So you are just handling a lot of checks from, and I was in the head office in Barclays. So I was just handling checks from different branches and interbanks and all that. And I was like, I'm
Also
definitely,
very administrative.
yeah, it was just
Yeah.
very complicated, but it was good. It was a good landing space. And as people, I mean, people left college and tarmacked, and I didn't. So
Yeah.
when I finished college, like on a Friday, and called them, and they were like, "Can you come on Monday?" And I was like, "No, can I finish, at least clear up the
Yeah.
college, and then I can go on Tuesday." So they allowed me a day. So yeah, so I really didn't have a break. So by 7 months, I was also very pretty tired because then I'd not had a break. You know how you finish those exams in college and then you start working almost immediately. You start working immediately.
Yeah.
And then at that point, I just started thinking, I know, I'm not sure. Maybe I need to take a gap year and really
Okay.
think about that. Now
Okay.
that I've decided banking is not my career. When you're growing up, it was I want to be an engineer, a banker, a doctor, all those things. But then now it's like, no, none of those is interesting. Even this banking story. So I took a gap year. And when I took a gap year, I decided to do a leadership internship, and that's how I ended up in Nairobi Chapel because they had a training for interns, mostly postgraduates at post college, and through proper leadership training as you worked in the church, but you also went through a lot of training, and that for me was actually the best thing that ever happened because I look back and I say I'm able to do my job today because of especially the skills I learned in that 1 year. Because just management skills. We read a lot of books on leadership and management. We did our projects. You're thrown in the deep end. I had my supervisor who just used to be like, "Here is a project: swim or drown." And if you have a problem, come to me for solutions. I'm like, then where am I coming to you? So that
Oh,
was
that's
really
good.
good. Yeah. So that was a really good training ground. And I look at my work today because I have to do a lot of projects and I have to deal with a lot of, if you're working in church, you're dealing with people, you know. And if you're in a middle class church, people have a lot of opinions. They just don't follow, So you're having to deal with a lot of opinions. A lot of these people are leaders, they're business leaders, they're organization leaders, and all that. So I had to deal with that, and as a very young person, but that was the expectations. But when I look back and I realized it was the best thing. That now today, people ask, how do you deal with presidents and all that? I'm like, I just deal with them, But I think it's because I'd had that base training when I was much
Yeah.
younger. And so I think when I was there, so I stayed in for another year. And I was in the projects department, so did a lot of fundraising and a lot of running projects, beginning end to end. You know how you structure a project and you run it end to end, and that really gave me a lot of those skills. And it's within that time when I realized what I really wanted to do, and I kept feeling, oh, I love what I'm doing. I'm seeing the impact in the society, but I want to do more. I want to impact society even at a higher level, maybe influencing policy and all that. That's when I decided to go and do my master's. And at that point, I didn't have a master's. There was no university then offering a master's in public administration and international affairs in Kenya. So that's how I left the country and went to the US. And so so I did that, but I was very determined to come back. So I did that. Then I did it. It was supposed to be 2 years. I did it in 1.5 years, killed myself, and then thought, okay, ready to come back. Then I came back for one of the holidays, and I met a friend of mine who had been in the US, had done their first degrees there, they done their masters there, and I told them, I'm ready to come back. I know I'm called for this country. And they told me, if I was you, I'll take a few months, even if it's just 6 months, and work. You get some work culture that is different from here, and it will really also help you, So you have education from Kenya, you have some work experience from Kenya, and then now you have education from the US. If you work in the US, there's some bit of work culture there. You'll be more rounded as a person. And so that's what I did. So I stayed, and of course I couldn't get a job that could allow me to do 6 months or less. So I ended up doing a year. And I worked for a think tank, a policy think tank, and that made me feel, okay, now I know really this is the world I want to be in. And during that time, I came back home for a visit, and I was talking to one of my mentors. So the other thing I think, and when I tell my story, I tell it I go back and forward. I'm like that matatu driver who moves forward, remembers there's one more person to pick, comes and drives back and picks one more person.
But we get that.
So when you hear me going back, you just know, I have remembered something now. I tell my story in bits. Then, so one of the things that also learned from a young age, and maybe because of growing in a very strong, large community, large family, where, uncles, cousins, aunties, and all those people, and second cousins and all that. So I'd learned to have mentors very early in life, and I realized I was always learning from my aunties, from my older cousins, and all those things, beyond just parents. And that became something, now I look back, it's not things I planned to do, but they happened just because of just the my environment. And so I met one of my mentors who I'd known when I was in college, and we had kept in touch, and I had several mentors when I was in college. And when we were talking and I was telling her what I want to do, she told me, there's this little organization that just started. When I left, we had Moi as president. When I came back, we had Kibaki as president. And I was totally lost when every other Kenyan moved on. And I was like, oh gosh, where is Moi? I don't know how to deal with this new president. But so KEPSA had just started around that time. And actually it was the government that had asked for private sector to organize itself and engage government on matters economy, but as one body instead of multiple bodies. And so when we met, when I met her, she told me, you know what you're talking about, influencing policy and engaging government on matters economy. There's this little organization that just started the other day. It's like a year old. I think it would be a good fit. And so the chairman is a friend of ours. Do you want to have a talk? And so I met him. At the time it was Manu Chandari had just passed on the baton to Lee Karori. And so I met Lee Karori and we talked, and he said, when you come back, well let's continue the conversation. So I went back, I finished my year, I came back, and I met him, and they said, we don't have a position right now. I told him I'll volunteer. For me, I just want a place where I can start putting some of my thinking, my skills, and also because of my Barclays experience, I was like, even before I jump in, let me know if this is what I want. And so that's how I did. I volunteered for like 6 months. But also the organization I worked with, Sagamo Institute in the US, wanted to create a partnership with a local organization. And so when the CEO came into the country, the president, he met the board of KEPSA, and he was like, this is a good fit. And so so I organized, so he said, okay, let's try and develop a partnership. So I helped to develop that partnership. And so while I was so I continued to be paid by the Sagamo Institute to develop the partnership, and I volunteered in KEPSA with apart from partnership, other work. And then the CEO who was there wanted to recruit a program manager. And I wasn't sure I wanted a full-time job then. I was still enjoying my freedom, but she was like, you really need to do. So she did her interviews, and then she came to me and said, Carole, I think you really would fit for this job because you've already been here like 6 months. You're doing the work anyway. So we are recruiting for the work you're doing. So why don't you do it? And I was like, okay, let's try. So that's how I got into KEPSA more. And so, yeah, and so I was there from 2005 until end of 2007. And she left. She recruited me, then 2 months she left. And I was like, Salma, you just got me. And so we had a new CEO. And by end of 2007, I wasn't very sure where the organization was going. And I wasn't feeling I don't know how to work in a place where I can't see the vision, I can't see the impact. And that's just not me. So, yeah, so I left. I left without knowing what the plan was, but I was also very exhausted, because I just realized I've just been running and running. I've just not taken a break. So I thought of doing some consulting as I rest. And so I did that for a year. It was the worst time. I tell anyone, don't do this. It's what your parents say, don't try this. Don't jump out of a building, because I left at the height of post-election violence. And of course, my parents are looking at me like thinking, are you crazy? Who leaves a job at this time? Yeah. So I left in January, and but it was when I look back, I think by God's grace I survived, and I started helping some of our leaders had become MPs then, and so they wanted to draft some economic plans for their constituencies. So I did that. So I helped them do that as I rested, and I worked with a few who were really good, like people like Mutabam, CME, and others. And so there were good people. The people wanted to make a difference in their constituency. So that helped as I rested. And so I rested, and after the year, and when I was leaving, I told the chairman then that this is a great organization. It can do so much, but it's not going in the right direction, and I'm not able to continue to work here. But if it ever changes direction and I'm still available, I would come back. And so, true to my word, at the end of 2008, he gave me a call and told me we decided to change the organization and the direction. Would you be willing to come back? So that's how I went back. So there was
Sorry, let me cut you off. I have a question.
Yeah.
How did you get to be so bold? I think many people maybe in those situations, you're like, I'm not feeling this strategy, I'm not feeling this vision, but they don't even speak out. We'll give you that courage to speak out.
That's the other thing. You've got to speak out. You've got to have a voice. As long as you're just not speaking for speaking, because sometimes we tell people, you have a right, and then people say things and they're like, really, maybe you should just be a bit quiet, so at least know why you're speaking, know what you're talking about, so I knew what I wanted, and I was just never, maybe it's just my nature, I've just never been afraid to say what I really want. If I don't like a black shoe, I don't like a black shoe, and I'm not going to wear a black shoe, so that's just me, maybe, yeah, but I think there's also a place. I also grew up, and maybe I needed to begin there. I grew up in an university setting. And so you're surrounded by teachers and professors, and those guys are always talking. And they're always, so you learn to have a voice. So sometimes the environments you grow up, sometimes they shape us. And I think for me, I feel the reason why I do my job the way I do has a lot to do with the environment I grew up in. So growing up in an environment like that really exposed me a lot. And it was those days, like I grew up in Egerton University. It was an American-sponsored college then. It was not even a university then. And so it was very, very diverse. All races, all tribes. And so for me, even when this whole tribal thing began, I was like, what's all this? Because it was just tribeless in that sense. In those years when we were growing up in the 80s. And so, yeah, so because of that, you interact with so many people from so many backgrounds, from Kenya and from all over the world, the Indians, there were Zungus and all that. So you learn, and then if you interact, especially with Americans a lot, you realize they have a voice. And they're not shy to use their voice. So I guess a lot, yeah. So interacting, I think, with a lot of people from that was good. And then because, as I said, I come from a big clan, so I keep saying we are one of those, like an Indian family. We operate all of us together. We go all of us for holiday. We do everything together. So you've got to have a voice, or else you'll be lost in the 30, 50 people. So even the smallest child has a voice, because you will just be assumed by everyone else, and everyone will go on with their life. So sometimes our backgrounds shape us, and we grow to be different. So I guess that's where I came from. And so I was never afraid. So even when my chairman then, as he was the CEO of Everready, he was an American. A lot I notice, because you notice sometimes I look at some of the Kenyans, and when they see a Mzungu, they shy off away. And for me, I've never seen a Mzungu and thought someone different. It's just another human. So he's the one I had a conversation with. And so when he called me back and I went back, there was an acting CEO from the board. Then they recruited a CEO then. Actually, what was so funny, Salma came back as a CEO.
Salma
comes back, and I come back. And now back to my old job, but now I have more work. Beyond my old job. So I'm program manager, I have more work. She comes back and she stays for 2 months. And she leaves again. And then the board was like, you know what, Carole, this job. So they still did the interviews, and they did the hiring. So I still went through everything that every other candidate went through. And then, so I acted when she left in August 2009. So I acted as a CEO from August 2009 to January 2010. And during that time, we had the whole recruitment process, because, it's an open process. So no one is guaranteed a job. But then that's how I ended up acting, and then getting confirmed in January 2010. And the rest is history. So I look back, like I've been there for how many years? Yeah.
It's been exciting. I mean, just seeing what's been going on. Yeah. So I'm sure that in itself, like the work challenge has propelled you.
Yeah.
Because no day is the same. You're always doing something different.
Yeah. I'm always doing something different. The organization only had 5 staff. Now I don't keep up with the number of staff in the office. If I know the managers, that's good enough. I'm like, yeah. The rest is okay.
Nice.
So we've grown from a very small organization, and then and I guess the challenge was there. I had very good support from all those business leaders. I mean, as you can tell at that point, now I'm not that. I was young. I was a young little girl among all these captains of industry, the Manus, the Vimals, the Patricobats, and everyone else. But they were very supportive. They mentored me throughout my journey, and so I owe it a lot to them, and and then it was when I came in, it was during the coalition government when I took over as a CEO. And so, the government guys, there were a lot of older people. So then, because of course, if you have an older president, they're likely to have older people around him. If you have a younger president, the same thing. So there were a lot of older people around President Kibaki and all that. And so, they also took me under their wings. So I learned the ropes through government, because as an organization, our mandate is to work with government for the business, to understand an enabling environment for the business. So if you can't develop relationships, you don't understand how government works, you're not going to deliver anything, And so, and so they mentored me through that. President Kibaki and Prime Minister Raila were very, very kind to me, and I think they made it much easier for me to be able to interact with other presidents around the world. So, because they just made it so much easier. And so, when people say, how do you stand and speak in front of 42 presidents? I'm like, they're just other human beings, So they just made, I had an easy time, in the sense that I grew in an environment that was the work wasn't easy. And let me not make it sounds easy. It's just that I had good support, but the work was tough. And building an institution in its own, whether it's a business or just an institution, is hard work for those who've done that. So that was already hard work. There were no systems, there was no HR systems, there were no financial systems, all those things, So you're doing everything, and I always make this joke and say the first time I had to fire someone, I first went to my car and cried. Then I came and fired them. I just couldn't handle it. Yet I knew they needed to go, And so, but you grow and you make a lot of mistakes, you learn. Then you start meeting challenges, and the more you grow, the more you're successful. People, we're also not a very easy culture to work with. People don't celebrate success much in this country, which is sad. So you start finding you have enemies that you did not know, and you've done nothing wrong to them. And so surviving that, riding that wave, having many tearful nights, but waking up and still going on. Yeah, it's part of the journey. Yeah.
Awesome. So, guys, we are live with Carole Kariuki, the CEO of KEPSA, and we're talking about her career journey for those who've just joined us. So, if you have any question, do share. Ask your question so we don't leave you out. Yeah, it's a really, really interesting session. So, I think the first place would be, I mean, wasn't it daunting for you taking up this new CEO position? So, I think one of the things I have come to, especially for women, it's like, I'm not sure I can do this job, so I'm not even going to apply. They may even have acted and then they won't apply. Yeah. So were you daunted at the task of, oh my goodness, first of all, I'm very young. This is a whole new thing I'm starting out with and all that. What were your thoughts during that time? And what made you say, I'm going to keep going anyway?
Because that was not what I thought. For me, the focus was what I wanted to do, the change I wanted to impact. Remember, I kept feeling I can be part of change in this country. You remember that time with the whole idea of all the things that were going wrong in the 90s and all that, and having done economics, I kept feeling there's so much we can do for this country. So for me, I was focused on what I could do. I was focused on saying, this country has so much potential, we can exploit it. And I just felt I had a good platform. The private sector plays a very, very good role in terms of exploit and being able to get into so many spaces, creating jobs, creating wealth for the country, getting into social programs. The private sector just has a lot of that influence in policy and government and all that. So I just felt it was such a good platform. Working with development partners, they're all here trying to do something, working with them and making sure that we're doing the best for this country. And so I think for me, that's where the focus was. So I wasn't focused on me. And I just, so I was more focused on what I felt can be done and should be done. And so I just went for it, so I wasn't afraid in that sense that, so I didn't, maybe I was naive. I just never thought of what if I fail. That just never crossed my mind. Maybe now it crosses much, much more because I'm older. That time I was just nice and naive. So I just wanted to do. And so I went, and luckily I had the opportunity to do it.
Yeah. But that's really awesome, not focusing on yourself. Yeah, because we get into our head about these things, Carole. We get into our head, and then it's like we can't separate actual versus the like perceived fears that are not even real. Yeah, I like that. And just focusing on what the value is you bring to this and what you can do. Okay. All right. So I think the other question many people would have is, so you move into this leadership position, but there were other people who also wanted to be the same, they also wanted the same position. And some of them could even be in your team. Yeah. So how do you navigate that? Yeah. Because you have to work with them.
Yeah. And you're right. I think when I was joining, that time when Samuel was coming back and I was joining, the chair then was Patrick Obath, and I got to know this much later. Someone from the team did write to Patrick and said, "Oh no, I'm not sure those two ladies can do the job." So I was telling Patrick later, I'm glad you never shared. Not that it would have made a big difference, but I'm glad you never shared with us. But I think you go in and you make everyone, people follow a leader, if you're the leader who is always more caught up with what's going on, what are people saying, and all that, people will do the same. People will be caught up in the same things in the office, but I don't have that time. And for us, I keep saying we're the government of the private sector, yet we are a drop of the ocean in terms of size, like for what government is. And so there's so much to do. Everyone does like a 5-10 man job in a day. And so you can't be caught up in that. And so what happens with people who are not keen, they fall on the wayside as you go along. But the good thing, the core team has remained. Some of the, like 3 of the people who I found there, of the 5, have stayed. They're still there today. And they've risen, from one being just one was a secretary, the other one was a front desk. She's already gone all the way now. She's a head of HR and operations. The one who was a secretary to the CEO, she's now head of membership and marketing. The other one was just an assistant accountant. Now he's the deputy to the manager, or the finance manager. You know, they've grown with the organization, and for me, that's the other thing. Just the idea is to grow. As you grow, you grow others. I always say, you need. If you're going to grow, you need to keep shedding your weight. So when I got in, I was doing a lot of those things because we didn't have capacity, but I started shedding in as they grew and as themselves, and as we brought more people. And that's the way you rise and you go further. I wouldn't be able to be doing what I'm doing, at international level, at national level, regional level, at international level, if I was still carrying the weight of the organization. So I've had to continue to shed that, so that I grow it. So you develop others, because when you develop others, then you also grow, So when I look at people who hold everything, I'm like, you will remain there, you will not grow. Even your own organization, even companies, you see people, businesses, who they will not let anything little go, because they're thinking, what did they steal from me? But if you're thinking like that, that's what they'll steal from you, So yeah, people say, how have you maintained? And people, people are not, you don't have a team that is corrupt. They're not asking for money. And we are in a place where you could make a lot of money. People can bribe you to get things from government. Government can bribe you to get, there's so much. But because, the team grows the way you are, and they emulate you. And then they look at them, that you develop the culture of the organization. And so if they know that's the culture of the organization, if they are not like that, they don't survive. They go, they leave, and only those who live within that culture can be able to survive in an organization like that. We've had others go and come back. So we always say, when some people get new opportunities, they come and say, oh, I got a better opportunity. I'm going to say, okay, bye. But don't forget us. And we've had 3 who've gone and now are back, and they've risen with the organization again, and they're doing great things, with the organization. So that's so that's for me the joy, just to see people grow, because that's how I grow.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm going to title your talk, like, keep your head above water. So far, that's what I've gotten. Yeah. So Hiram says, KEPSA has good managers. I liked talking to the deputy CEO and some of the managers as we worked on the sustainability project while there. It's a good ship. Okay.
Thank you. That's good to hear. Sometimes, when I'm trying to get everything done, I'm thinking, guys, let's move. So it's good to hear when I'll let them know that they're appreciated out there when I'm beating them.
Like the value is showing. Yeah. And typically Morgan says, to think KEPSA rests on your shoulders, the Kenyan girl child has a lot to look up to in you. My major question would be the greatest lesson you've learned by making it big in a male-dominated field.
So I tell people this one statement, and I know a lot of the girls ask this. I tell them, if you're a leader, you're not a leader because you're a woman. You're not there because someone felt pity for you. If people felt pity for you, then you're in the wrong space. Or you're there because it's a token. If they give you a token space, then again you're in the wrong place. You're there by merit, just like the men who are there. And so when you're there, you're not a woman and they're men. You're leaders. So that's one. So first, that's the first thing. For me, that's the biggest thing. Then secondly, yes, even if I'm in that boardroom, it's dominated by male. Nowadays I celebrate. I look back 5 years ago and I'm like, gosh, we have so many women now, leading in top leadership, top management, in boardrooms. For a long time, my first 5 years, I was either one or two in a boardroom. And so it was definitely male dominated. The business community is still very male dominated, but not as much as it was when I joined in. It's really, really changing and changing fast. But then again, so yes, so when you're in that boardroom, you're a leader. You're just a leader like any other, like every man that is seated there. But at the same time, you're also a woman in the sense that there are certain things that men will do that they do because of men. And there are certain things that you have that are different because you're a woman. Like you're intuitive as a woman and maybe more caring than a man. So bring it to the table. Don't feel like I can't use my intuition. I can't use my nurturing self in a boardroom. If there's a place for that, because I'm expected to be like a man. No one expects you to be like a man. You're just expected to be a leader. And then the differences that you have between men and women, bring them because they are positive. They're not negative. You're not being you're not being a blonde in the team. So I tell people, I don't. There are things that are different. Men love to. Men don't wear bright suits. They don't wear red. They don't wear pinks and all that. So I don't have. That's not men. But me, I have my pinks and my reds, and I enjoy them. So I wear them in the boardroom. First time I walked into a boardroom and there were two women, I couldn't even tell there were two women. They were all in grays and blacks. And I thought, okay, maybe they like me, I don't. And so I don't have to conform to that because it doesn't change me from being a leader. So I wear my bright colors, my pinks and my reds, and I'm fine. Because I know who I am as a leader. So that I think that's what I really tell the women. Don't go there because it's a token position, because then you will not be a leader. Don't go there because someone felt pity for you. You won't be a leader. Go there by merit. And once you go because of merit, then you have nothing to be afraid about.
Absolutely. And I don't know how you feel about it, Carole, but sometimes when I think we've gotten into this place where we talk so much about the male-dominated field, that it almost feels to me like you already coming to the table feeling like there's something less than, like you're missing something. Yeah. And that in itself will affect you. You'll be like, can I really? That's instead of the focusing on the value, you'll be focusing on how do I cover up, for the things I think I don't have. Yeah. So that was great advice. I like that.
Yeah, and it will be there. I must say, like the first now, even today I still get it, but not as much as then. Now I've been there long enough. But for a long time, enough people, whether they are Kenyans, whether they are foreigners, we have this mindset. One, that office is for a man. Secondly, there's a woman. She is this big mama, and so someone would come to my office and say, "Oh my goodness, you're so tiny, you're so small, you're so." It was always a joke, and I realized those are things that can get into your mind and you start questioning yourself. But for me, it was always so much fun. Then I'd be like, that, because for me, I'd always feel like then you'd never see me coming. Because in your mind, you think I'm small, I'm young, so you never see me coming. And so I get my work done, I'd enter rooms and people would say, "Oh, we're waiting for the CEO." And I'm like, "She's here," and they're like, "Oh," even letters. I would get foreigners writing to me, maybe sending me a document or invitation letters. And they write Mr. Kariuki, because to them, it cannot be a Miss Kariuki, yeah. That's the nature that comes with that office.
Which is so good you brought that up, because I'm like, that's just horrible stakeholder management right there. Like you don't even know who you're talking to anyway. But how do you go? Okay, so you start, you're in KEPSA. KEPSA is it's a nascent organization. Everyone has their opinion. Everyone has their way. They want things to be. How do you rein all this? Because these are powerful people.
They are.
We have responsibilities. Yeah, how did you do it? And you were so young. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so how did you go about it? Yeah.
So I think the thing is, I tell this to my team, you lead leaders. We're not like any other organization where all maybe you're just dealing with customers, or you're just, if you're dealing with shareholders that you meet once in a year in an AGM. As guys, constantly we meet with our stakeholders who are our members, but they are leaders, and so they have opinions from here to Timbuktu, because they're leaders, and leaders know, and they know everything, so they come to you with, they know. So the first thing is you need to know your staff, because you know what? So you run the multinational. Imagine you don't run KEPSA, so you don't know how KEPSA runs.
Okay.
No, but you don't say it, but they need to know that you know what you're doing. So if you stand up and you look like you don't know what you're saying, you don't know what you're doing, you're shy and everything, they run all over you. Because they're leaders, not because they want to, but it's because they are leaders and they know how to lead. And so whenever they're
looking for results.
And then there's no vacuum. They don't have to deal with a gap. So they fill every gap, they fill every conversation. So what I do, I let them talk. And then I say, okay. So all that I'm hearing, let me summarize this. I think we are going here. But leaders are also like followers. They will talk, but if someone else now gives a direction, they all follow. So you learn to listen, but you also learn to say, but what are we about as an association? What is my mandate? My mandate is not selling electricity, it's not selling cabbages. My mandate is to say, how does electricity and cabbage make sure that gets sold? That leader doesn't know that space of how that works together. You're the one with that knowledge. So you're the one now who fills that space. And so you've got to fill your space as they fill their spaces. So for me, they have the intelligence and knowledge of their sectors. And so I take all that. The other thing is, as a KEPSA CEO, you've got to know a little bit, not a little bit, some bit of every sector. Because at the end of the day, you're going to have a conversation. They can't be telling you about what's happening in the mining sector, and you're looking at them like, first tell me what mining is. You can't. You've got to know a little bit about mining. What's mined in Kenya? Where do our minings go? What are some of the challenges miners go through? So that when they come and share their challenges, you already start thinking how you can solve those challenges because you know a little bit. And then you leave there and you go, like today morning, I had a meeting, a conference that I had to speak about climate change and what private sector is doing. So I need to understand about climate change. What's really happening with climate change? I can't be blank. And then what is the private sector role in climate change? Then I leave there and I start talking about what we're running in Kenya Daima, which is to influencing the discussions on peaceful elections next year. I need to know what does that mean. And I was engaging media influencers. I'm not in the media influencer space, but I need to know what they do and who are these. I need to even to know a few of them and to know a little bit about them. So I spend a little time on social media to get to know. So I move from one sector to another, and so that's the nature of my job. So then in the afternoon, I was talking about SMEs and the trade agreement that we did in the US. What is that about? How are we going to do it? SMEs are waiting to say, you signed it, so now what next? I need to know a little bit of what the SMEs are challenges, what are the issues, what can we do? So you get to keep knowing something. So I keep saying I'm an encyclopedia, only the difference is that I'm not a dictionary, I'm not depth, So people know their stuff deep, but I have to know enough to engage and to resolve issues.
Plus, you are now the linchpin for them to translate what they need with what government needs.
Yeah.
That's expertise they don't have.
Yeah, so they don't have that expert. They know the shoe is pinching, but they don't know how do we stop that shoe from pinching. They may tell you, just tell government to do this. And I'm like, That means we need to develop this policy or this regulation needs to change this way and that way. That's not my work. Because then all they need to know the shoe is pinching and it needs to stop pinching.
Absolutely. Yeah. So fill in your shoes in case you're not filling in yours. Yeah. So there was a question. Let me just look for it here. Oh, thank you for being an inspiration. Did you ever experience imposter syndrome once you got into leadership? How did you handle it? So we actually did talk about this in a bit, but maybe Carol, you could just quickly go over your response again. Yeah.
No, because as I said, and maybe it's because I'm just naive. Someone says I don't even know what's behind me, and I never look back. So if someone was following me, they would really have an easy time, But I think I'm just like that. I just jump and I go because once I'm focused on something, that's what I'm focused on. I
Yeah.
don't know what's happening on the side, what's happening behind me. Me, I'm just focused. So I never really experienced imposter syndrome. I never felt small. But let me just say, of course, you don't wake up one day and you just stand before presidents and you speak. You know
Yeah.
that that's a skill you learn with time. So your work, but even in terms of presentations, let me tell you, that was the hardest part because I loved. So today people say you're just confident and you do, and I tell them, I'm a reluctant leader. I'm like Moses in the Bible. Me, I'm happy to lead from behind. But the space I was thrown in, there's no leading from behind. So I had to learn to lead from the front. And that was hard. And I used to tell myself in the early days, I would be like, okay, I have this presentation. Then I'll tell myself, Carol, when you were young, you used to be in drama. And what do you do in drama? You stand up and you act. And you know your part. So I used to tell myself that. So I'd read, prepare on my presentation, then I'll tell myself, time to act. And I'd go up there and I act. No one will know that I actually had to tell my mind that, but with time, it stops being that, you perfect the act. And so it's what they talk about 40,000 hours. You practice something long enough until you're good at it. So it's like even a carpenter. If they make a
Yeah.
table so often, that table that they started making 10 years ago will be so different because they perfected the art. So the idea is perfecting the art of what you do because you've done it for a long time. So even the first time I had to stand in front and speak before many presidents and many heads of states, I didn't sleep a wing. you know, I just didn't sleep. I kept thinking through every word I'm going to say and how I'm going to say it. And in the morning, I remember I sat down with Vimal and just Betty, for the people who know Betty Investments, and they're great big business people who build their own businesses over years. And you know how, like for the Indians, they've really been an inspiration to me of how you can really build from something so small and build it over time. And so for me, I've worked a lot even with them. And they sat there and they were helping me rework. And they said, no, put this one here. And I worked with them and I worked with them. And that was the hardest. And I remember finishing and my leader saying, oh, you did such a good job. But I was in the car going home. I went home, I slept for 3 hours and came back for the rest of the meeting, because it's just like, I can breathe. It's like you've been holding your breath for 24 hours. But now that's gone. That's different. Now I don't have that fear. So you grow with time. So it was not an imposter syndrome. It's just that it's I was focused because of what I want to deliver, but then I've grown with time. So you deal with those challenges as you go along, and you grow with it. So you just don't wake up one day and you can do everything. It's like a baby. There's no baby that is born and that just starts running. They see, they walk and fall, but then one day they are running and you're thinking, this baby used to fall the other day. What happened?
Oh,
The same thing with everything. Yeah.
absolutely. So the cure to your fear, if you have imposter syndrome, is to actually do what you're fearing. Like
Yeah.
push yourself little by little by
Mhm.
little.
Mhm.
Okay. So there's no way out. There's no other way out.
No,
That's
yeah. There's no any other way. Yeah. Unless you want to do quick riches and you get them today and you may end up in jail tomorrow. But if you want to succeed in life, it's a step at a time. It's a
a
step at a
step
time,
at a
but it's
time.
worth it because it's long term, it's lasting.
Absolutely.
If I was an imposter who had been put there as a CEO, I don't think I'd have been there 12 years today. No, I'd have lasted a year, 2 years, and people realize very soon here there's something not missing. But
Kizungu
because
iliisha.
it is Indonesia,
I know. All right, so Mumbi asks, says, I'm looking forward to hear from Carole how she managed to be on several boards, whether there's some specific action she took. Yes. So how did this board, let's start there. How do these board leaderships actually come about? Because
Yeah,
we never see them advertised. People are like, where is the advertisement?
yeah,
So how does it come about? How do you prepare for
yeah.
one? Yeah.
Yeah, so boards are never advertised because boards are about service, and
Mm-hmm.
people look for you to serve in a board because they've seen a certain skill, know
Mm-hmm.
that you can add value in their organizations. Remember, now you're not going there to be management. You're going there to support management achieve a goal. So you yourself must have achieved certain things to be able to be. So I see a lot of Kenyans saying, "Oh, why doesn't government give jobs to the young people in these parastatal jobs, parastatal boards?" And I'm like, they are not jobs; they are service. It's about that you have achieved certain things, and now you can give back. You can support another organizations to grow. And it has nothing to do with age. It just has to do with skill and experience. And so, how did I begin to build boards? Now I'm more. I would say now I'm more. What's the word? Forgive me. It's in the evening, so when kizungu ikianza kuisha,
Seasoned.
I'm more deliberate. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I'm more deliberate about what I want to do, where I want to serve. But all the boards I've served until now, it's because of what I do. So people would see, and they'll call you and say, "We'd like you to serve in this board because we'd like you to help us and support us as we're doing this." So that's been my experience about serving in boards. So I got invited into the boards,
Yeah.
both academia. So I served at Daystar. Daystar didn't even last long. They're going through such hard, I really had time. I did 1 year and I thought, I can't serve in a place where I can't see what I'm doing. And so I asked to step down and so that they could first sort out the issues they were going through. And so I left that, but then I was asked to serve in the USIU board. And then at that time, I was also serving in the Harvard Africa Advisory Board, in which was based in SA. So in the academia, that's the side I've been. And then I've been in a lot of advisory for young organizations like NILAB and others. Then for government, I've only served majorly on one board, special economic zones. Again, that one, I think the president must have thought, this one who's been pushing this act to be in place, because I'd been pushing that thing like for 6 years. The special economic bill, we worked on it. Then now it was pending in parliament, it wasn't moving. So I kept pushing it in parliament. Then now it was done. Then I was like, the president is not assenting to it. It was assented. 2 years later, I just saw my name, special economic zones, but I was like, what? Yeah. So sometimes that's what happens. I think people just see the passion you have on something, and because I understood what needed to be done in that. So I guess people look out for you in that sense. So yeah. Then for the private sector ones, the East African Cape, I was meeting with the equity fund that I think the chair or the CEO of the equity fund that is supporting them, and we were discussing, and he was telling me what they're doing, turning around that, and I thought, oh, this is very, very interesting. And then so he told me, oh, and actually, we're trying also to add some value in the boards, and like East African Cable doesn't even it has a lot of nice old men, doesn't even have a woman in the board. And so I landed there. Only the most interesting thing, I found one of the people in the board was actually my father's classmate in high school. It tells you the age of that board. But it's been a fun board, learned a lot from those wazees, and also just supporting management in the issues that are happening in the cable world and all that. Yeah. And then recently I was asked to serve in a young board that is just the company is 10 years, and they felt like it's important to start putting some governance structures. And so they have their first board, and they talked to one of my mentors, Linus Vitahi, who told them, no, I think Carole would be best serving you. And so that's how I've ended up being their chair. And so starting to help them just put governance structures and help them grow, because they're a really growing, exciting company. So that's some of the work that I've done, and others are basically task forces and all that, government task forces and all that, yeah. So that's how about, but now I'm being deliberate to say, okay, let me see how I can be of help in certain areas. And then because I work with these companies, so I've realized as I present them, when sometimes I sit in some of their boards, I get to know issues at farm level. And so I understand the challenge at a farm level than just at a national level. So yeah, so now I'm a bit, yeah, so I'm not in many boards right now. I think I'm in about 2 or 3, but I'm also very careful not to be more than 5 boards at any one time, because then you don't get your best. And I have a full-time job. Those are not jobs. That I'm serving. Yeah. So that's what has been my journey with boards, but a very good experience. So if you have an experience to serve in boards and impact and see another institution, another company, another organization grow, please do.
Yeah. And I think it's also for people who are looking to do a career change, I think being on a board is such an amazing opportunity to dip your foot in and see what it really looks like without, exerting yourself. Yeah. But so how would someone, let's say, look, someone is probably saying, okay, I'm not known, but I have achieved things within my organization.
Yeah.
How would I proactively look for these opportunities? Yeah, because my name I'm not a household name or whatever. So, but how can I proactively look for board opportunities, because I really want to grow in that?
Yeah. So there are institutions that you should join. So there are 2 things. For me, as I keep saying, because of my work, I was out there, so it was easy. But if you're not in a space like mine where you're out there by default, because that's your work, you have to look for opportunities. So join institutes of directors. If you're a woman, also join women in boards, because they do training. So you're trained how to be in a board, but they also look out where there are board opportunities. They ask you which are the areas you have interest in, and so they know. So as they see board opportunities that are where people have interest, and then they're able to send your name in. And so it's the same with the Institute of Directors. So join such organizations. They're really, really good, because then they're able to put you out there as you work. And then also do networking. If you're in business, join organizations, join KEPSA and others, and be there. As you network with people, then people get to know you, people see you. And not only is it good for your business, because you do a lot of business, but then you get also known. And so when people are looking for people to be in boards and all that, then they'll think about you.
Absolutely. Okay. So I think one of the other things I thought you could really, really help with, given your experience, is how to work with other cultures. Yeah. Because sometimes people feel like, okay, I have these great ideas, and I'm looking for these partners, I'm looking for these investors, but I feel like I'm just deaf ears, right off the wall. Like nothing is sticking. So what does someone do? What are we doing wrong? Actually, maybe you could say, like, what are some of the typical things people do wrong? And what could they do? Yeah.
It's understanding culture. And I was also very fortunate when I was doing my leadership program at Nairobi Chapel. We had one of the pastors then was an Australian Chinese, and one of the courses he would do was called what was it? I don't remember the name, but basically it was about anyone who was leaving the country and going to another country, whether you're going to work or to study or to do business. And he would do it was maybe a 6-week course on training on how to live in another culture and live in another country. And the biggest lesson I remember, he always said, understand your culture first. Understand the culture you're getting into before you do whatever you're doing. So don't go there and because we are Kenyans and we do this this way and we do business this way, and you want to do business with an American the same way, or if you've been doing business with an American a certain way because Americans do business a certain way, you go and do the same with the Chinese a certain way. It won't work. Culture is so important if you're going to do business or be able to interact with people. So now I feel like I'm a global child because I have so many relationships out there, but I always know, I say, I'm going to Japan. How do Japanese interact? What makes them tick? How do they relate? And I get to do that, and learn and then by the time I'm engaging them, and you end up developing relationships. And then even business is built on relationships. Western culture, not so much. They may not care so much on deep relationships, but Eastern culture does. And so does an Eastern culture and Southern culture, where the Southern hemisphere does care about relationships. So if you're going to do good business, they want to build relationships for you to do business. So know the culture that you want to do business with and how they do business. If they do business by first relating and then building a relationship, do that. If there are certain things they do to build trust, then build trust. There are a lot of cultures that do business through trust. And if you don't, you don't build trust, then they won't do business. And you're wondering, hey, why can't I get to do business? Or you do one deal and then never happens again. There are people who do one deal and they say, oh, I did a deal with so and so or in this country, but I haven't got another deal in that country. Half the time because you didn't take time to understand that culture. In the world of business, mine is relationships. I have to build relationships. So I have friends. They've now become friends. Some even I get to know their families. I visit their families, but they're my counterparts in those countries. But that's the only way I'm able to work because I've built relationships. So you build relationships. You get to know them. You visit them, and when they come here, they visit you and all that. And it's just not even just meeting in a restaurant for a cup of tea. Different cultures operate differently. Some they visit you at home, you host them, and all that. So
That's true.
so understand the culture first.
That's true. Yeah, I actually remember our work situation. Yeah, I was really butting heads with this prospect. Yeah, I was in sales. Oh my gosh, he was French. I don't understand why we're not getting along. And then one day it just hit me. This is not how you do business with a friend.
No.
You
No.
don't pitch. Yeah.
No.
And imagine, do you know what solved it? We went
Yeah.
out for lunch.
Yeah.
We just talked about his kids and his wife and where he's traveling to. And wow. Yeah, it really does matter. It really does matter.
Yeah.
And I think another thing is, okay, because you sit, you have the ears of the nation's leaders. I'm sure you hear a lot of things about the kind of leaders they're looking for, what's missing. Yeah. What are some of the things you're hearing that you could share with us? What are these things people need to develop?
People need to develop the leaders, or we the people.
No, their followers, their supporters. Yeah.
There's a phrase one of my friends uses, and the first day he used that on me, I was so offended. But now I realize how true it is. He says, Kenyans, we are experts with no knowledge. And I thought, oh, that hurts. But he was right. We feel like we know. And I tell this even to my business people when we're going to engage government. I tell them, government, those kinds of officials, they know a lot. Don't assume they don't know. Don't go to them and talk down to them. They know. So be sure you know your staff, then also engage them with like they know. So that's, I think for me, that's a lot of what I hear is that we Kenyans, we're very opinionated, but I think sometimes we don't seek knowledge. We just we assume what I read in the newspaper or what Jane told me or what Tom who told me they were with so and so, they were with the Mheshimiwa so and so they got to hear this. We assume that is gospel truth. So we don't seek, we don't know which. We are not a very knowledge culture. We're still very Miro, and it's a good Miro culture of oral. So once I have talked to Beryl, I think Beryl knows, and so that becomes my dictionary and my my source of information. Instead of saying, is Beryl the right person for this kind of information? Where should I seek this kind of information? So we don't seek information, and I think that's a big thing, and that's why sometimes politicians take advantage of us because we don't know. So we think we know, they know we don't, and so they take advantage of us. So I think for me, what I would advise my fellow Kenyans is that let's seek knowledge, let's seek information, and let's seek it in the right places. If you don't know, there's always someone who can lead you to the right information. It's just like business. know, you can't start selling shoes if you know nothing about shoes. So you take some time to get to know about shoes, you know, what sells, what kind of shoes, what, you know, all those things. So if we do that with our businesses, we should do that with everything else about our country. And then I think we'll be better citizens.
And what technical skills, let's say, because a lot of the people on the call are leaders in their own respect and managers, and they're looking to become CEO, MD, whatever. Yeah. But what skills are you hearing like, oh, people are missing these skills, Carole, like we wish they would develop?
I think
Skills.
develop skills in your area. You know, even after I became CEO, I've done a lot of courses, short term. You know, you don't even have to do long. You know, like I didn't know a lot about the whole advocacy. You know, I tell people it's not just going to government and saying build that road. You know, advocacy is like a 5-step thing of how it should be done to be able to get something done and being accepted and done and put in the budget and all those things. And so develop skills in your area, you know, so do even if they're short courses online. Now, at least there are good things that there's a lot online. A lot of the time I was doing a lot of the courses were physical, but I'll take a week off. I'm still working, but I'll take a course in a certain area. So I've done a lot of short courses that I've gone around, you know, and then also you can't be talking about things that you're also not doing. Like we've really been big on ethics and governance. So I've done also governance for, as a person, you know, and not once, twice, you know, I think thrice, you know. So build, what I would say is keep building yourself. You never stop learning, you know, continuous learning. Yeah, you know, especially in your area and also in other areas that you have an interest in. Just keep learning. You know, that's what keeps everyone going. If you look at even those big leaders and even business moguls in the world, Gates and all that, they're always sharing, oh, this is the, you know, I read a book every month. You know, why do they read? You know, you have to keep learning. You know, si nilitoka shule, I am done. Never seeing the lecturer again, sirudi huko. No. Now you're learning to skill yourself in the things that are of interest to you and really keep you growing, you know, so that you're also not remaining in the same place.
Absolutely. I thought the skills of the future. In fact, I was reading some reports about skilling for leaders, and you know that the propensity to learn and teach others, or learn and actually apply. That's one of the biggest things, like you've said, people find that is lacking in leaders. So technically you're good and everything, but you just don't want to stretch out of your comfort zone, you know. Yeah. Okay. So guys, we're getting to the end, the end of the session. So please, if you have any questions, do share them. Yeah. We're about to start answering some questions. In fact, there's one now. Okay, so sometimes when we're in partnership negotiations, I get frustrated because my boss doesn't want me to speak up, even though I feel I have something to add. What should I do?
That's not a good boss, but anyway, you learn to work with what you have. So for me, I allow my team to speak, and I always say, and then I say, what would you like to add and everything? Because because I always tell myself, I don't know everything. You know, I know my area, and the reason why I have different team members, it's because they are skilled in those areas, and I don't want, I'm not going to do their job. But maybe the one thing I could say, maybe try this and see if it works. If you're in partnership negotiations and you have information that you think would be helpful for that negotiation, share with your boss before. Maybe he doesn't want you to speak in the meeting because maybe they don't know if you know. But the more you share with them, maybe before the meeting, they may start thinking, hey, this person really does know this stuff. If they go and use it and realize it works, you know. So maybe instead of getting frustrated, find different ways to do the same, to pass the same information without using the same thing. So I always say, if a window closes, another window opens. You know, if a door closes, you open a window. You know, and so don't feel frustrated. Yeah, just you find a different method. Maybe just tell them, share them the information, or after a negotiation, go back to them and say, before we go to the next negotiation, maybe this information will be good to share and everything, and they'll know you're adding value. But if you're just silent, they'll be thinking you don't know. You can't add value. So don't be silent, but find different ways to say it. You don't have to say it in the meeting.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, just in line with that, Carol, what would you tell someone who is thinking, I want to raise my influence in the organization, right? Like maybe you feel like my ideas don't get adopted. Yeah. And they're good ideas. I feel like they're sound, but for some reason they just don't get adopted. So, or I
Yeah,
don't get the ear of the
yeah.
board. What do I do?
Yeah, yeah, and that does happen, and even to us CEOs, it does happen. Sometimes you have great ideas and the board can't even see it,
Yeah.
so you just sometimes time is good. You don't have to put that time. So patience, as I said about growth and growing yourself and growing wealth, everything is time. We shouldn't feel like I have to do everything now, 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 now. It's not my, I know we're in the age of microwave. So fridge, microwave, and defrost, and everything is done. Think of those days when you had to light the jiko and fan and, all that. So sometimes things take time. But keep sharing those ideas every time. If something goes wrong, say, why don't we think we'll do that? Even if they don't do it, with time, it will happen. And then when you get an opportunity to implement something, just do it in your level best, and then just leave it. One of the things maybe I would share, if you look at some of a lot of the awards that I've received, I always tell people I never went for it, And if I go somewhere where when I see something where people say nominate yourself and all that, I don't do, because I don't, it's not my place, And what has been so interesting, each of those big awards always came at a time when I was very low. When you feel like you've done, and everyone is just seeing all the things that are not done. They're just beating you, because there's so much. And then somehow God rewards you. And even if He doesn't do it with an award, just know He sees and He rewards. And maybe that's even why you remain in that organization. Maybe people come and go, and you remain there, and you don't realize why. It's because you're still doing the right thing. And so God in heaven is still seeing and rewarding you by keeping you in that job when people are losing jobs. Or your business, when people's businesses died during COVID, yours, maybe it never grew, but it remained. And you don't understand, but you kept doing the right thing. But sometimes I used to say, sometimes God, I think, just sees my tears and just says, okay, from nowhere, I get an award to give from Morocco. I'm like, how did those Moroccans even know I exist? Or those Indians. So God sees, and sometimes He may reward you differently, but He does reward you in different ways. Yeah.
I hear you. Okay. So another question we have is, who do you look up to and what are your favorite books?
Yeah, great. I look up to very different people for different reasons. Because I think for me, as I said, I'm a product of mentorship. So I have different mentors and different mentors for different areas. So I look up to different people. So what I tell people when they tell me that, I tell them, what are you about, and what are you interested in becoming right now in your season of life? Then find the people who are in that, who have succeeded in that area, and those are the people you look up to. In term, and so I have had people who are seasonal, depending on my seasons of life, but then I've had long-term mentors who I look up to because they walk with me the journey of life. So I wouldn't say this is a one person, it's just different ones. But books, of late, I've really enjoyed, for a long time when I was much younger, I used to think I want to be a lawyer. So I used to read a lot of John Grisham's. And then when they turned to movies, watching the movies instead of reading the books. Now I enjoy a lot of what is his name? Gladwell Maxwell. So I really enjoy his books. They are so well researched. They are so deep. So the latest that he just did, and I really enjoyed reading it and especially in my season of life right now, is talking to strangers. Because I'm this happy-go-lucky who trusts everyone, and I just, I keep saying God protects me because I've been in a lot of trouble for the way I operate. But somehow, yeah. But then it's been interesting reading it and just learning how to talk to strangers. And learning that the world is also not as innocent as it was in many years, a few years ago. It's gotten really, really bad, and so how do you learn to talk to strangers? And so that has been a very good book. One of my favorites of his, when I was a young CEO and I was really struggling with a lot of just doing a lot and having, again, getting to that space of being able to speak in public and in big forums, in international forums, was David and Goliath. That was also one of my favorite. I feel like a David with all these Goliaths around the world, leaders and all that, and then I think the other one that has also been very good for me, because as I said, when I joined this space, it was very male dominated. It still is, but not as much. I feel a lot of comfort now. There are a lot of more women, and we've also worked hard as KEPSA to really do a lot of what we call gender mainstreaming. Getting women to move into that space of leadership and all that. And so I'm very, very excited about that. By that time, and being there was no other organization like us. The closest was Chamber of Commerce, but very different from us. So I didn't have mentors in terms of who were in this particular space. So as I said, I had all these other mentors who are business leaders or government officials, but they were not in this space. A lot of it I had to learn alone as I did it, because no one had run a KEPSA before, and a KEPSA of this size, in Kenya. And so one of the books that I really, really enjoyed reading that time was The Outlier, and just how it is to be an outlier in your space and all that. Yeah, so that's he's been one of my favorite writers as I've walked the journey of KEPSA in the last 10 years or so.
Yeah, and I think just going back to the point you're making, like the rule of 10,000 hours. I mean, go get his books; they're awesome. Yeah, I told you that will help you to really put into perspective the beauty of growth and the beauty of time, as it develops. And we have, let me get another question here. Let's see. So guys, please share your questions. We're just about to conclude. Okay, so so there is this one. I inherited a team that is demotivated. Ooh. Sales aren't coming through and we are losing strategic partners. Honestly feeling overwhelmed because I'm more of a technical leader. This is my first MD position. I am missing a bit of that. Oh, what can I do to boost morale?
When I'm hearing that question, that feels like me when I took over KEPSA. It was a very small team, but they were so demotivated because, as I said, things had gone very south, as the organization. At that point, even the board members were discussing, do we close this organization? What do we turn? Do we turn it to a virtual organization? So the team there was very demotivated. They'd lost a lot of members. There were very few members. Then they didn't have even funding, And as I said, I usually jump in with my 2 feet. Then I wonder what I did. I remember looking at asking for finances, and I had 1 month of salaries left. And I thought, what? And then I'm supposed to do what? And yes, and I'd come from being a technical person as a program manager. Now here I am I'm the CEO, so the organization falls on my shoulders. Development partners who were supporting the organizations had left, so they were not getting funding, and the members were not, the membership fee was so little. And so I had to really tell the team, we're in this together, we have to get out of this. And so I looked at some of the ones I really knew, development partners who I'd known before, and I just went and I said, you know what, you need to help me, for sure. This is my plan. I said, this is my plan of this organization and all that. And I know I can do it, but I need a little help, And so I got a little money And then on the membership, I went back and I said, I told the board, the membership fee has to change. It's been what? For how many years? It cannot be. There's no way you're going to run an organization like this. And so it went up like 100-fold. And I thought members would not pay. Surprise, surprise, they paid you know yeah, so I was like, so it was small steps, and so I just had to really think carefully. And I know sales is not the same, and sales is hard, but I think you have to just start thinking a bit differently and think of areas or markets, or if you've not even been if it's something you can do online, can you start using some of the online channel opportunities like e-commerce platforms to sell, just it's a bit of creativity sometimes when you're in this in these seasons, where that makes a difference. But then the team needs to feel you're with them. You're not letting them do it, and then you push them and they do it. If they're demotivated, they won't bring anything. You all have to do it together. I sat down and wrote proposals. I didn't tell my team go and write proposals to get funding. I sat down and did it. Burnt the midnight candle. But as they saw me doing that, they realized, hey, she's in this with us, and so they started also doing it. Yeah. So just roll your sleeves, go out with them, let them see you selling. Start looking for other opportunities. Ask them. You may be surprised the what they may tell you they you could do differently, because sometimes that's the thing. I keep saying every person that I hire, I tell them, I hire you because you have a skill, otherwise I'll do the job myself. So you'll be surprised what they may come up with if you share with them. And I know I don't have all the information from that question to offer a lot of help, but I hope some of these are things that you could try, and maybe we can take it offline and have more conversations.
Absolutely. And on that, Carole, what did you do, like in terms of the strategy and the vision of the organization? Yeah, because obviously it wasn't working. Yeah. So what did you tell the team? Maybe a little bit of a snippet so that we can pick from some of that. Yeah.
We sat down and wrote a new strategy.
You just called it as it was. It's not working.
Yeah, it's not working. So we did a new strategy. We got a team. We got help. And the other thing I realized with Kenyans, we don't ask for help. If we feel like we don't know or we have failed, help has nothing to do with your failure or that you don't know. It's just that no one can do it alone unless you're a hermit, and you have to go and live alone. As long as you're here, you have to work with other people, and you've got to ask help where you need help. And so I think for me, that's the other challenge that I realize people don't. I even told my team, you have the skill, do the job, but if you need help, come and ask. I will not look at you like you don't know. You just need help. Even for me, I go to some of my mentors, I go to some of my board members, and I say, I just need help on this. And you do it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Don't fear. Okay, so Daisy asks, most women in leadership cite loneliness up there. Is it lonely? Has it changed? How do you deal with this?
It's only lonely if you choose to be lonely, and so develop relationships, So for me, I keep two levels of relationships. I've kept all my relationships that I had in college, because my job doesn't define me. Remember, this is just a ticket I have for getting into the show right now. I may not, after the show, I don't have that ticket anymore. So that I can't start being Carole, the CEO. I'm Carole Kariuki. I just have a job that I do today. So I'm not one of those people who will leave my job and my phone will go silent, because I've kept all my relationships from them. Because when I'm with them, I'm not Carole CEO. I'm Carole Kariuki, the person they knew when we were in college. And so that's one of the things that makes it easier. So I've kept all my friendships from as long as I can remember. And then there are other women who are in leadership. Get to know them, support each other, even as you relate to the men in leadership, they mentor you, and as you grow together, as you do business, look for the women also, so have very women friends. And I always say, we men support each other. We have to support each other as women, even as we support each other as business people, or as government people, or as civil society people, whatever sector you are in, you support each other because you're in that sector together. But at the same time, there are areas that you need support that are different, that men won't support you. And so you look for other women and develop those relationships. So loneliness is as you choose. That's been my take, you know. Yeah.
I've never had that before, but it makes so much sense. Like the people who say it's lonely at the top are choosing the loneliness.
I think you choose to be lonely. Yeah.
Very, very interesting. Okay. And William was actually our previous guest. Yes. Thank you for joining, William. Joined a bit late, but just want to let Carole know that KEPSA did a fantastic job facilitating COVID vaccine accessibility to hundreds of organizations and thousands of employees working in those organizations. Your level of organization communication is at another whole level. My team benefited from this, and I'm super grateful. William is with an
Yeah.
he's with a really interesting, like really good organization called Educate. Yeah, and he's the MD for Kenya and Rwanda. Thank you, William.
Thank you. That's I should capture that. Let me just take a photo of that and tell my team that they did a great job.
Yeah, so as you're telling them do more, they're like, but yeah, we're seeing the results.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah. Okay, so guys, any more questions? We are just at the tail end. We have room for only one more. So I can't trace this question, but Rizin had asked, how are you able to pick up information about all these sectors?
I spend time with the sector leaders and all the sectors. So I spend time where I don't know if there are land issues. I get to know who the sector leaders. So what we've done also with KEPSA, what we've done is organize all our members into the different sectors. So if you're the people in lands or agriculture, education in those sectors, so I get to spend time with those people. That's how I get to know the information, and get to know what's happening in that sector, what's working, what's not working, where the challenges. So you've got to spend time with people. So you can't do this job if you don't like people. Yeah. So
you're saying all CEO jobs.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. So if you want to be a CEO, you have to be very careful which sector you're going for. So if you do my job, you've got to like people. Because you've got to spend a lot of time to get to know what's happening in their world, so that and remember, half the time, even though we create all these platforms where they can go and raise these issues with government, half the time I have to represent them in many meetings, because a CS will call me and say, Carole, come to the office. There's this issue that I'm hearing is happening in the private sector in agriculture. They are not telling me send my sector people. They're asking me to go. So I better be knowing what's going on in that sector. If I don't, call the people in the sector and get to know, but then I have to go and speak like I'm actually in that sector, like I'm a practitioner in that sector. So I have to know my stuff. Yeah. So you've got to spend time reading. You're going to get time to interact with people and get to know what's going on.
Absolutely. Stay curious, Rizin, is the thing, yeah? Yeah, thank you so much for that question. Yeah, and I think we are done. Carole, I think we are done. I have so many questions I know I could ask, honestly. But I know you're so tired, you've had a long day, so we are so grateful that you are here with us. Yeah, so I'm just getting a lot of comments coming through. So guys, share your comments. Yeah, let me hear, what did you get from this session and all of that. Yeah, as Carole, I just want to give you a few moments for you to just say whatever it is on your heart to share, that you'd like to share with the rest of us as we close off.
Yeah. No, okay. I think for me, I always say when I interact with Kenyans, at personal level, we're such great people, and I think that's God just gave us a great country. And so I think for me, all I say, let's exploit our potential. Let's not be afraid. Let's not try to be like other people in other countries. Let's just be authentic. Let's be us, and let's just do what we can do, because we can, and we have so much potential. Kenyans are celebrated so much world out there. I was in New York when the president was taking up the chairmanship of the UN Security Council, and when you hear the accolades that Kenyans have in the UN system, it's amazing. we're such good people. So let's not look down on us. Let's not think, oh, we are Kenyans, we always do this and that. No, we are great people. I think I really need to leave us on that note that we are great people and we have so much potential and we can do a lot for as us alone and and together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think for me, it would just keep above water. Yeah, just go for your, just go for these new opportunities and try. Be curious. Yeah, there was so many good nuggets from the session. I hope you guys had a fantastic session. Okay, I know you had a fantastic session, but yeah, I also really enjoyed myself. So until next time, I just want to wish you all a very, very good night. Thank you so much, Carole.
You're
Yeah, have a
welcome.
wonderful evening, and I'm sure that there will be lots of people looking to reach out to you. How do they reach out to you, by the way? How does someone reach you?
You can send me an email. It's much easier at ceo@kepsa.or.ke. If you have any questions that you'd like me to respond to, if you'd like to join KEPSA, we can send you information. We have membership for all categories, all levels. Right now, we have 10,000 small SMEs who are members of KEPSA because we make sure that everyone has a space.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so a lot of comments. Like I can't even begin to read them all. Yeah, just hearing thank you, Laura, thank you, James. Carole, you're such an inspiration. Thank you for an informative session. Yeah. Thank you for the great discussion. Yes, we had a fantastic time. Gosh, so many comments. I think if we stay over here, we are just going to be like reading comments all night.
Yeah.
Yeah, but thank you so much, Carole. Thank you so very much. Yeah. And to everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Remember, we do this twice a month. So if you haven't, please subscribe to the channel. I don't know, whatever you're listening to, whether it's on YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn, so that we can keep abreast of all of the nice conversations we're having. Yeah, it was nice listening in on Carole's journey, and we'll be having more and more people coming on board as well. Yeah, so to everyone, have a wonderful evening, and God bless you all. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.